Sato is your typical lonely, miserable loser with worthless ambitions and his sorry excuse of a life. He desperately moans to get freaky with his childhood crush, who has grown to be a hot, beautiful MILF with deadly World War III cannons at her disposal. But alas, being a balls-less, ugly, pathetic Joe, he never manages to confess his mediocre feelings. Though one fateful day, the Simp discovers his crush is an alien and is about to return home. Of course, he can't stop simping for her, so he jumps right into the portal, getting isekai'd to a world full of juicy Roxanne-like girls, where he is forced to save the world by becoming the powerful Ring King. But before that, he has to marry not one, not two, 5 big personality princesses along his childhood crush, and conquer them by clapping them to become the king of 5 nations. Hi, I'm Zach and welcome to my channel Eni Tales Recap. Today we'll recap the anime called Legend of the Wedding Rings. If you like these types of shows and want me to keep bringing such anime recaps every week, leave a like and comment to let me know. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as it helps me a lot and keeps me motivated to make more anime recaps. So without further ado, let's start the recap. The story begins with our typical ugly protagonist named Sato, who climbs a tree, hunting for bugs like gullible kids do, when a beam of light suddenly shines on him, causing him to hug the ground. He wonders what this is as he looks at the shining portal before him. Then an old man and a girl appear from it and approach him, leaving him wondering if they are aliens. The scrawny ugly girl asks what his name is, and he cowardly introduces himself. She calls her name Hime and tells him not to tell anyone about what he just saw. She then casts a spell, so he forgets what just happened and offers to be his friend. At this moment, the Simp immediately feels the sense of responsibility to protect her, and somehow he perceives it would have to be for a very long time. 10 years later, Hime, already fulfilling wifely duties without a proper wedding, goes to wake Sato up for breakfast. On seeing the meal, he is surprised she prepared such that early, so she tells him she just woke early and was excited about the school's break, which begins that day. He thinks about how they have been friends for the last 10 years, but suddenly loses his balance when he notices her huge personality. Looking at how nicely crafted these perky god gifts are, he tells her she has changed so much since they started high school, stating that she used to keep a low profile. She replies that her physical qualities have made her noticeable, and also, she is a princess. He is surprised and asks her what she means by this, as she has been saying it for years. However, she doesn't respond and rather leans toward him to pick up a grain of rice on his ugly face, which she then puts in her mouth in a sus way that immediately charges his magnum to full capacity. They soon head out for school, and on their way, Sato observes the rings are seated just above Hime's soft cushions and remembers her telling him how important the rings are to her and that she would give one of them to the person she marries. She did propose to him if he would marry her when she was a kid. Hime catches him looking at the rings and immediately dashes his hopes by telling him to count himself out of her potential suitors as he has grown up to be ugly as hell, disappointing him. Later at school, she proudly flaunts her exam scores before her friends, and while they praise her for her smartness, she tells them she is a princess after all. The girls think she might be a weirdo of some sort as not even Google or Incognito knows which country Princess Hot MILF is from. Meanwhile, Sato was talking with his dorky friends just like him. The ugly dude with a matching resemblance to an ape complains about the upcoming break, telling them how boring it would be, most especially because he is as single as a dollar bill. He tells Sato he is so lucky, ending with the fact that he comes to school with a hot chick every day, but he replies that they are just neighbors. Mr. Ape calls him an idiot and advises him not to snooze or he loses. Sato receives a text from Hime asking him out to the summer festival occurring in the evening, and he wonders why she sent a text. He looks at her and she waits at him, making him embarrassed as he wonders if she likes him. However, he doesn't want to put his hopes high as even he knows how much of an abomination his stupid looks are. But even still in the evening, this jackass appears for a date in his sweaty school uniform, and on seeing her, he is mesmerized by her beauty, causing him to take a stance as though he got enlisted in the army for Afghanistan. They wander around the festival, and as they view the different activities, she reminded him of how he held her hands when they last came to the festival when they were little so she wouldn't get lost. She tells him he was her hero back then, but now he is a zero. A few moments later, she sees some lollipops and gets one to suck on. They also see a plushie store, and Sato pulls a low-budget James Bond move to get one for her. After a while, they get to a sus place and he reasons that this would be the best time for him to confess his feelings for her, but as he tries to tell her, he is interrupted by fireworks. She suddenly reveals that she wanted to tell him about something for a while and he only wonders if she also feels the same way for him. Anticipating she would tell him how he got no balls to confess, but she shockingly reveals that she will be moving the next day. She tells him that she is returning to her grandpa's homeland, a very far away place, leaving him speechless. Returning home, she thanks him for the time they spent together and the memories they share, and then quickly runs in before he can say anything. Later that night, Sato wonders where her homeland is and suddenly realizes that he doesn't know as much about her as he thought he knew. While he thinks about this, he suddenly sees a beam of light from across his room and immediately runs out to check. On seeing the bright light shining from afar, he instantly remembers that the same thing occurred the day he met her. So he quickly goes to the location. When he arrives, they are prepared to just enter the portal, but he yells her name. He tells her not to go and she realizes he still remembers after all. She then tells him she is not actually moving but is going home to a different world where she will be getting married, shocking him. She bids him farewell and enters the portal. However, Sato thinks about running after, wanting to stop her. But it is too late. He then reasons that he didn't come just to see her off, so he immediately decides to forsake his own world and go with her to her world. He finds himself in a place where Hime is being joined by her groom. And as the celebrant tells them they can now exchange salivas, he quickly calls her name, surprising her. An abyss monster suddenly breaks into the palace, and Hime's grandpa declares it is after the princess, saying they were right to have hidden her in another world. He immediately jumps forward to face the monster, but it flings him off like a fly, causing him to say that they really need the Ring of Light, instructing Hime to give the ring to the prince. But she immediately runs to meet Sato and kisses him instead, forcing responsibility on him. Her grandpa is shocked, but the prince seems to be okay with this and immediately gives Sato his sword to fight the monster. However, the idiot thinks the prince is showing him what a real sword looks like and wonders what the heck he has to do with it. The sword instantly begins to glow as the ring glows, and though he is clueless about what he is doing, knowing he is a bird brain, yet still he runs towards the monster and cuts in two as if his father was a butcher. Shocking everyone, including himself, however, he collapses immediately. The next day, Hime wakes him up, and he wonders where he is, to which she replies that he is in the royal couple's bedroom, shocking him. Then she reminds him of their kiss, embarrassing him as he begins to wonder as if he just won the girl whom he never thought his ugly ass could date. She tells him she was supposed to marry the prince, but she barely knows him and doesn't want to marry a stranger. So when she sees a familiar face, she just goes for it even if he's an eyesore. He is disappointed that he is just an afterthought after all. Then she tells him she has chosen him to be their hero. Afterwards, he is introduced to the nation's citizens as the defeater of the abyss, the bringer of light to the nation, the Ring King. This feels like a dream, and when he is told to give his speech, but he yells out that he's an ultimate simp and admirer of big personality waifus like Angela White.
You serious?
Which the unintelligent crowd happily accepts as a speech. Following his cultural speech, Sato goes to take his bath in the bathhouse. He thinks about how irrational his decisions have been, when Hime appears with her moderately sized cannons pointed at him. But she is immediately embarrassed when he stares at her like every typical virgin. He wonders what she is doing there and she shyly tells him they are newlyweds. They both soon enter the bath and she feels remorseful as she tells him she dragged him into her mess even though she knew all these were bound to happen when she gave him the ring. However, Sato, blinded by his feelings, tells her he will be fine as though he knows what is going on and then says he doesn't mind staying by her side in this world if this is something only he can do. Surprising her and causing her to remember when he used to defend her from bullies when they were little. The cultured simp tries staring at her melons, wondering how they might taste, but she hides them, telling him not to take the wedding seriously as she only had to choose a Rizz-Less loser like him on impulse. Suddenly, the alarm bell rings, causing Sato to quickly stand up, revealing his big anaconda in 4K, which scares him of how huge his is. Several monsters from the abyss have appeared, and the soldiers call on Sato to help them as the Ring King. He becomes surprised as he thought he could freely clap the princesses like Johnny Sins whenever he wants to. Hime immediately defends that he doesn't know how to clap yet. Sorry, she meant to say fight yet. But her grandpa interrupts by saying,
"We don't care."
As long as he claps monsters with the ring's power. Hime gets sad, but Sato summons courage and grabs a Grim Reaper's axe. It immediately begins to glow, and he tells her that although he doesn't know much about this world, but he will do everything he can because Mr. Smarty Pants can tell it means a lot to Hime. She immediately kisses him, boosting this confidence. One of the monsters corners a girl and is about to clap her, but Sato suddenly appears and splits the damn monster in two, amusing the little girl as she runs off. He is surprised that he is still standing after butchering 3 of them, unlike before when he collapsed after destroying just one. Hime's grandpa tells him it's because of the kiss he just shared with the princess, stating that the strength of their bonds as husband and wife translates directly to power from the ring. He further explains that it's a princess's duty to provide strength to a king heading into battle. Upon hearing this, he immediately realizes why Hime put her saliva in his mouth. However, the old man tells him that his weak still won't last very long right now, which is why he is there to help him. But Sato isn't convinced whether this old fart can assist much. The Knight of the Abyss King suddenly appears upon seeing the ring on Sato's finger. And upon seeing this, Hime's grandpa becomes scared. Sato observes that this dude is different from the other monsters, but he doesn't care much as the idiot seems to be very confident in the kiss his princess gave him. But the knight summons the wind that knocks him against the wall before the old man can stop him. Sato discovers his weapon has broken and realizes that the ring just saved his butt from transiting to nirvana. The old man tells him to move his stinking ass, and they start running immediately, with the idiot still wondering what is happening. Meanwhile, Mr. Halloween summons 2 monsters immediately to chase them. As they run off, the old man laments that he can't believe the Abyss sent something that strong to attack them, and he concludes that this shows how much they fear the Ring King. Sato asks him what the heck that creature is as it is too strong for him, and the old man tells him it is a Knight of the Abyss King, a very terrible monster capable of wielding powerful magic. Sato is surprised to hear magic and tells him that he thought he was supposed to be able to handle them using the power from Hime's kiss. However, the old man ain't in for some useless talks, so he tells him they will talk about it later, and then immediately pulls a move right out of the blue, the last airbender, erecting a wall of hearth to buy them some time, shocking Sato. The old man, thinking he has provided a means of escape for them, describes how they will escape, but he discovers he just made a fool of himself as he just successfully shut both of them against Mr. Halloween. The foolish old man becomes scared that they have been pincered, and just as they wonder what to do, Prince Mars suddenly descends from space to cover Mr. Halloween with a cloth and lights him up. He then tells Sato and Hime's grandpa that a carriage is waiting to take them out of the castle. But Sato worries about Hime. However, he tells him to just obey and not worry about that. A few moments later, they are now in the carriage, fleeing like cowards. But that is the smartest thing to do if they don't want to relocate to the underworld. Sato thanks the prince for rescuing them, and he introduces himself as the second prince of the Hazaris Empire, the neighbor of the Kingdom of Light. Sato then asks the old man if the kingdom they left behind will be safe, and he replies that since the Abyss is after the rings and the Ring King, he will start searching for them once he learns they are no longer in the castle. However, he tells him that it will be difficult to destroy the high-ranking monsters without the power of light. Upon hearing this, Sato tells him that this means that he really has to be the one to do something about them. But Hime's grandpa dashes his ego by reminding him that they are running away because he is a dorky weakling and doesn't have enough power to save them. Sato is surprised and asks him what he means by he doesn't have enough power, and the old man explains that his power as the Ring King is still but a small amount. He then adds that in order to bring out his full power, he will need the other 4 rings, shocking him as he questions the purpose of the ring on his finger. The old man reveals that he has to marry 4 other princesses to clap them and get their rings from them, shocking him. Hime's grandpa further teases that he will be living every man's dream, clapping 5 baddies at once. However, Hime is sad about this. They soon reach an inn and lodge there, but before they go to bed, the old man decides to teach Sato some history. Long ago, their world was on the verge of succumbing to the dark powers of the Abyss, which nearly broke the hearts of mankind, and many nations were covered by the shadow of death and loss. The Ring King sought to dispel this darkness, so he forged rings imbued with magic, the rings of light, fire, wind, and earth. With these he fought a long and fierce battle, ultimately defeating and sealing away the Abyss King. Afterwards, 5 princesses married the Ring King and passed the 5 rings down through the generations within their 5 nations, which served as proof of the bond between the Ring King and those princesses. However, unfortunately, the Abyss King has revived and is slowly regaining his power. The duty of the Ring King is to once again obtain the rings from each of the 5 princesses and use their power to seal the Abyss King. Following this, Sato and Hime stay in the same room, and while they are embarrassed about their need to develop a plot together, Sato suddenly feels pain and Hime quickly attends to him. On seeing his wounds, she instantly feels responsible for them and becomes sad, saying it's because she chose him as the Ring King. She runs out of the room and he immediately follows but loses sight of her. As he steps out looking for her, he sees Mars and asks him about her. Mars tells him she just passed by him, and understanding what's going on, he tells Sato he knows that being the Ring King is a heavy responsibility, and the duty can become too much to bear sometimes. The idiot tries to deny it like he's got the hang of it, but Mars tells him he is grateful to him, shocking him. He further reveals that he is relieved that he can avoid the duty of the Ring King. He then commends him for leaving his world behind to chase after the woman he loves, leaving him speechless. Mars then directs him to where Hime is, so he runs over to meet her immediately. On seeing her, he confesses that he loves her and that he came to this world because he wanted it, surprising her, but she tells him that she doesn't want her husband doing all the stuff expected of a Ring King. However, she informs him she has decided to take up responsibility and fulfill her duty as his real wife. She asks him if he will take her as his bride once more, and he replies yes. Following this, they return to the room with a ready mood for plot development, but they are too embarrassed to even take any step. Sato summons some courage and moves closer to her. He pushes her into the plot arena.
I'm gonna come.
But as he attempts to begin the glint of awakening his rubber sword, he suddenly feels something is off and leaves her. She wonders what is wrong, and when she thinks he will say something reasonable, the Simp tells her that their time together ought to be sweeter than this, making her wonder if this worthless idiot is suffering from ED like this guy.
問題があったのは俺の方だった。
それじゃ、最悪。
Talo! Sorry.
The next day, they appear before the old man, and he is disappointed that they haven't gotten cultured, embarrassing Sato. The old man reminds him that plot developments are what grant the Ring King his power, so he better put his magnum to effective use. Mars appears with some clothes for Sato and Hime, and the old man tells them that they are first headed to the hidden village of the elves, the Wind's Ranka. Sato is surprised, and the old man tells him that the Ring of Wings is passed down among their royal family. Afterwards, they head toward Ranka and come across the Tempest wall blocking the way, but Sato is busy stealing glances at Hime's panties. As they try to maneuver their way through the storm, a large beast appears, scaring Sato. He asks if this wild version of Winnie the Pooh is also one of the Abyss monsters, but the old man tells him not to run, it's just a bear, so he moves closer to pet it. However, the bear begins to chase them, and as they run, they get to the point where it's either they cross the Tempest wall into the village of the elves or allow the bear to cross them over to Nirvana. However, as the bear attempts to attack them, some elves quickly save them. They later ask what brought them to their village, and Sato immediately reveals that he is Ring King and he has come to marry the elf princess. Hearing this, they tell him that they have heard the rumor and will take them to meet her. However, the elves prepare their mind that it might not work out as they expect. The elves show them the way into the nation, and on getting in, they head directly to the palace to meet the elf princess. However, the elf princess is not confident in her beauty and hides like an idiot. Sato tells her he is the hero from another world, surprising her. She then embarrassingly asks if they have kissed since they were married, and being unable to bear how gross exchanging salivas are, she runs inside to vomit, leaving them wondering who the hell this is. A sadistic, ugly elf suddenly appears from the dark, telling them that is the nonsense of a being they have as the nation's princess. He adds that it will prove difficult to get the ring from her, and Sato asks him who he is. He introduces himself as Jade, the eldest son of the previous Wind King Ramka, and the older brother to the busty shy girl who just ran away. Upon realizing that he is the famous Ring King, Jade calls his soldiers on him, shocking Sato. They immediately take him away, and Jade tells the others that they will be taking him into custody for some time while they will be treated as state guests. Sato is put in a cell, and while he wonders if he has done anything wrong, Jade tells him his sister, Nephritis, is very delicate. Sato attests to this, saying she is pretty timid and immature, annoying Jade, who immediately tells him not to judge her by his lowly standards. He declares that his sister is an angel, and while she might be timid, revealing he's suffering from a sister complex. He further informs him that she has rarely ever left the palace, let alone the nation, which is why she is unaccustomed to strangers. he reveals she is only 54 years old and too young to get married, shocking Sato, who thinks about the fact that he is going to marry an old hag. Jade tells him he still needs to fondly watch her grow, and so he needs him to wait patiently in the cell till she is mature, which could take about 80 more years. Sato yells that he will be in his grave by then, but the elf gives no two shits about him. As Jade steps out of the prison, his assistant asks him if he is sure about this, and he replies that he doesn't give a damn about the Abyss King as the nation will be safe as long as they have the Tempest Wall. He adds that the only important thing is that they have to protect the Ring of Wind responsible for that power. 3 days later, Sato is still locked up, and he realizes that this dude ain't playing. As he thinks about this, yet another lady with enormous plots suddenly appears before him.
Oh my.
And he is shocked, wondering who this hot MILF is. She pins him to his bed in a sus position and asks what he hopes to get in gathering the 5 rings. He clenches his fist and replies that he only wants to live a happy married life with Hime, amusing her. She calls him strange and finds it silly that he plans to use the enormous power of the ring cane for just one woman. She then goes to open a secret door and tells him to come with her, shocking him. He asks why she is helping him, and she replies that she is responsible for watching over Ramka's future, and as far as she is concerned, he alone is capable of opposing the Abyss King. She adds that Jade knows this and still imprison him all because of the Tempest Wall, which happens to be the cage entrapping the elves. He keeps following her, and she takes him to the Wind Temple, where the Wind Ring is located. Upon seeing the statue bearing the ring, Sato is shocked, and the elder tells him that this is one of the ring's powers, called the Wind Regalia. She reveals that Nephritis should have inherited this, shocking him as he immediately considers leading the protest for justice for Nephritis. However, they suddenly see an idiot wobbling into the temple, so they quickly hide themselves to avoid being noticed. The idiot turns out to be Nephritis, shocking Sato with her beauty, while she pledges to her parents, whose statues are there, not to ever leave the nation to follow the Ring King. Sato reasons that praying to your parents' statues is total bull, but the elder tells him that those are not mere statues, explaining that even though their hearts have stopped and their bodies petrified, they continue to use the power of the ring to create a wall of wind as the nation's protectors. On hearing this, he makes a noise out of shock, exposing them. However, he immediately starts to make bird sounds to fool her, but the elder calls him a certified idiot as there are no freaking birds in the Wind Temple. Nephritis calls them out, and he reveals himself as the Ring King, causing her to faint. A guard from outside wonders what's happening with the princess. On hearing him, the elder tells Sato it's time to go and instructs him to bring Nephritis along before they catch up. After they head out of the temple, the Slow guard arrives at the scene and discovers Nephritis is nowhere to be found. He immediately informs Jade, who becomes worried and starts to search for her. Meanwhile, the elder takes them to a secret room. And while Nephritis is still unconscious, she tells Sato that the elf princess may seem timid, but she's a strong girl at heart. She says Nephritis will accept a bit of forcefulness so he can obtain the ring. She steps out, leaving him with her, but he just remains in a sitting position till she regains consciousness. However, on seeing him, she becomes scared and vomits on his dirty pants. Meanwhile, Jade visits Sato's cell but does not find him there. So he concludes that he must be responsible for Nephritis' disappearance. The elder appears and tells him the Ring King had eloped with the Maiden of the Ring of Wind, making him scared that his sister will no longer tell him she loves him. The elder tells him that his actions were never for Nephritis' good, and he attests to it, saying that the ring is still with his father and mother, which is keeping the nation safe, so Nephritis doesn't need to inherit the ring. He then tells her he will go have her apartment searched. Meanwhile, Sato and Nephritis are in the talking stage, asking themselves silly questions. She asks him about the world he is from, and he tells her it's a peaceful world, unlike how terrifying she had imagined it'd be. She asks if there are elves in his world, but he tells her no one inquires if she is interested in his world, to which she replies yes. However, she says that even if she is interested in the world outside the palace, she is afraid of stepping outside and only reads the books the elder brings her about the outside world, which helps her to have a feel of the places in her head. Hearing this, Sato tells her he is pretty much the same as he didn't come to this world because of any special powers or anything, but because he didn't want to be separated from the woman he loved. However, once he took a chance and made the leap, things worked out better than he expected. She immediately becomes excited and takes the chance to show him her huge shipment, igniting his phoenix.
What?
He then asks why she has never gone to the outside world before, if she is that interested, though she goes mute for a while, but as she tries to answer, Jade suddenly calls her from outside, interrupting their conversation. Sato wears his shirt and tells her he is not going to force her to marry him, just to gather the rings as she is free to do whatever she wants. Some moments later, they appear outside, and on seeing them together, Jade shouts up. But Nephritis defends Sato, saying that he is not the kind of man they think he is. However, Jade won't listen and tells her about the promises they have to fulfill to their parents, causing her to succumb to him immediately like a dumb pussycat. Jade starts to count his offenses, but Big Personality Elder suddenly appears, telling him she is responsible for all that happened. She tells Jade that the way he treated the Ring King is unforgivable, and that she will be taking care of him from now on, to which he agrees but tells them never to show up before Nephritis again. Following this, while Sato and Hime talk together, the Elder appears and introduces herself as Peridot, the oldest elf in Ramka. Hime also introduces herself, but Sato isn't concerned about useless introductions and goes directly to ask if Nephritis' parents have something to do with how she wound up like that. So she decides to tell them the story of Ramka and how it came to have a tempest wall around it. Nephritis and Jade's mother was the firstborn men to inherit the rings. She had an older sister, and there was a custom for the elven princesses to marry someone from within the village to prevent the rings from leaving the village and to protect it through the generations. But the eldest princess fell in love with a traveler, a human. This caused the elves to fear, as they worried that the traveler might take the ring out of the village if he received it. They even made up rumors that grew into suspicion, which then grew into conviction. But the more the opposition against the traveler grew, the stronger the eldest princess's feelings toward him also grew. However, a day came when the traveler suddenly stopped appearing, as it seemed that he had been driven off by the other elves, trying to protect the rings, or perhaps isekai'd. The villagers became relieved after this, but it was the opposite for the eldest princess, as her heart sank into rage and despair. She eventually placed a curse on the village and left. This caused the elves to become scared, and the fear that her revenge could come upon them at any moment continued forever. Nephritis' parents inherited the rings from the eldest princess, but continued to live in fear of her curse. So they decided to erect a barrier of wind to protect the nation from the evil approaching for the power of the rings, but at the cost of their own lives. However, before this, Nephritis' mother made her and her brother promise never to venture outside the wall, which is the reason for the current state of the nation. Following this, Alabaster suggests that they give up on the Ring of Wind, shocking Sato, and he tells him that the Abyss King's armies could be closing in as they speak, so they can't afford to delay in Ramkam any longer. Sato remains speechless, and the old man tells him that they are not entirely giving up on the ring, but he has to channel his energy into obtaining the other rings in the least amount of time, since he is a weak-ass loser. Sato reasons with this, but he is worried about the princess. However, the hell with the ugly princess. They soon begin to take their leave, and Jade is quite pleased, saying the story of the Ring King is a tale so old and musty that even the long-lived elves don't know the truth of it. As he talks about this, a servant comes in haste to report that abyss monsters have made it past the Tempest Wall, that they have so much pride in it. The servant continues by saying that a powerful monster has opened a hole in the barrier and is sending its subordinate monsters through it to have a tour of the kingdom. As Sato and his group head out of the city, they suddenly see many monsters trooping in, like they just heard there's an all-you-can-eat buffet at the end of the line, and are heading towards the palace. Alabaster immediately announces that they are turning back to go protect the rings, and Hime kisses Sato to prepare him for battle. The monsters begin to have fun, and Peridot goes to meet Nephritis to tell her about the situation. But Nephritis is scared to come out, feeling terrible that there is nothing she can do. She tells Peridot that she had promised her mother that she would stay put there. Upon hearing this, Peridot tells her that if she continues to be useless to the nation, she should just turn herself into a stone. Meanwhile, Mr. Halloween appears in the Wind Temple, and as he attempts to get those rings, Jade suddenly attacks, but the Mr. Halloween flings him off like a fly, making him realize how much of a weakling he is. He tells the Mr. Halloween that this won't make him back down, as he has to protect his parents' legacy. Hearing this, the Mr. Halloween decides to send him to where his parents are, then by unleashing a powerful attack, but Alabaster saves Jade by blocking it with his magical staff. On seeing them, Jade asks Sato why they have returned, and he just says, "To save your pathetic sorry ass." He boastfully declares that he has come to destroy the monster this time, for he has plenty of power now, and Mars advises him to be careful and not reckless or else there will be no more Ring King. Sato then ignites his lightsaber to attack while Alabaster tries to also support with his magic, but the Mr. Halloween shows Sato that he's just a powerless wuss who thinks fighting is by spitting useless motivational quotes. Observing this, Jade declares that they are too weak to cancel out all the knight's magic and are rather facing it with no hope of victory. However, Hime tells him that Sato already knows that, but no matter how powerful an opponent is, he will still protect her. Jade immediately stands up, telling her he will also protect his sister, as this is all he has lived for since they swore the oath to their parents. Meanwhile, Sato receives a knockdown again, and he feels ashamed, saying he thought he would be a little better this time. Hime observes this and realizes that her kiss alone won't do the job, so she immediately runs out of the Wind Temple and heads for Nephritis' room. Meanwhile, Alabaster suggests that they retreat, but Sato replies that they can't abandon the temple, as they have to prevent the monster from taking the wind rings. Peridot comes in haste to report that Hime has gone to summon Nephritis, shocking Sato, and she tells him Hime is doing it out of concern for him. Peridot then faces the Abyss Knight, who has been patiently waiting for them to finish their useless talking. Hime, standing before Nephritis' room door, tells her to marry Sato, shocking her. She further says that her parents also sacrificed their lives trying to protect her and the rings. She adds that she knows that it is a heavy responsibility to protect the rings and those who inherit them. She also used to be powerless and was unable to do anything but be protected. However, Nephritis tells Hime that she is not like her own parents, who sacrificed themselves to create the wind barrier so she wouldn't be able to inherit the ring. Hime tells her not to be like her, as she could not do anything in her time. She adds that everyone is fighting and they need her too, but she objects, saying that they are only fulfilling the responsibility of someone bearing the ring. However, Hime states that Sato is fighting because it's her home, surprising her. Hime further tells her that Sato is a really nice guy even if he's ugly as hell, but would do anything to protect someone dear to him, even if it might isekai him. She suddenly starts to cry, pleading that Nephritis marry him because she alone can't satisfy a pathetic simp like him, to make him big and strong. Shockingly, she opens the door. 5 minutes later, they both arrive at the Wind Temple with a hammer they somehow borrowed from Thor, and while the others wonder what they're planning to do with it, they dash toward the dumb statues and deal a devastating strike that shatters her mummy daddy in pieces, shocking Jade. Meanwhile, Mr. Halloween is still patiently waiting for them without interrupting. Nephritis picks up the ring and runs over to kiss Sato. She gives him one ring while she wears the other. The wind barrier fades out and vanishes immediately, shocking everyone, and while Jade wonders what will now become of their nation, Nephritis tells him not to worry. She instantly locks her fingers with Sato, joining the powers of both the rings of light and wind, which immediately unleashes a mass of light that wipes out all the monsters. The night monster breaks down in pain, and Sato immediately charges at it with his lightsaber. The knight tries resisting him with his wind magic, but he maneuvers his way through with his rings and stabs the Halloween mask on the monster's face, cracking it. However, Sato becomes exhausted and collapses immediately. Afterwards, he wakes up amidst two plot-filled angels and wonders if he passes out because they suck his liquids without permission. A stranger walks in to thank him for saving Ramka, and when he wonders who this beauty is now, Alabaster reveals that she is the elder sister of the former Queen Ramka. Named Princess Smaragdi, she was the one who ran away from the kingdom after placing a curse on it. Sato wonders what the heck she is doing here, and Peridot reveals that she is the face behind the Halloween mask, shocking him. She happened to have been influenced by a dark ring, which the Abyss King manipulated her into getting. Sato asks if they really don't know much about this Abyss King, to which Peridot replies that all they know is that it was said that after the legendary battle with the Ring King, he lost his body and his soul was sealed in somewhere far away. The old man adds that even though no one has seen him, his minions attack people and his black rings give birth to the Abyss Knights. He immediately attempts to move, intending to start working on getting the remaining rings, but he is yet to recover fully, and Peridot tells him that he could have died if he were a normal king without the power of the two rings, which he obtained with the help of the two princesses, surprising him. Nephritis immediately suggests that they develop a plot in a hot spring with the palace to help him heal faster. Following this, while they engage in a shower plot, Nephritis asks Hime to tell her how to act as a proper wife, and she replies that they clap a lot at night.
You liar!
Peridot suddenly appears with her huge missiles and demands that Sato develop a plot with her as she never tasted a human's Excalibur before.
Lord have mercy.
But she demands that Hime and Sato act a quick plot video before her to see how skilled they are at clapping, embarrassing them. However, Hime summons courage and approaches Sato, intending to initiate a plot development with him. However, this was being too much of a simp again, stops her and says he doesn't want to give in to the pressure into doing it.
Do me a favor, please. Get out of here. Get out of here, man!
Later that night, Smaragdi meets Alabaster to ask him if he knows anything about her lover, and he gives her a pendant that belongs to him, telling her that her lover had to leave then because he couldn't bear seeing her ostracized because of him. The next day, Sato and his team, alongside Nephritis, leave for their kingdom. Meanwhile, Smaragdi overhears the name Alabaster while she talks with Peridot, which happens to be the name of her lover. She immediately realizes that the old fart sage was her lover. But that's where the video closes.